Hey everyone, Jim Layman here, Director of Government Relations for the Insurers of Tennessee, doing a little virtual interview meeting today with some folks from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. I have with me two special guests. Abbie is the Administrator of the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, and Troy Haley, who is the Director of Legal Services. Abbie, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hello, thanks Jim for having us today.
And Troy?
Hey, everybody.
Well, thank you all both so much for being with us today. I know it's kind of different working circumstances for everyone, but our members still, want to know what's going on over at the Bureau and anything that will help them help their clients is very much appreciated. So thank you all for being with us. Wanted to ask you guys a few questions. Just start off with really, how have you all, the Bureau, been impacted by COVID-19? How are you ensuring that, everything is still running smoothly and all the trains are running on time? Anything that you're doing differently as a result? Abbie?
Well, there are a lot of things that we're doing somewhat differently. The impact on the Bureau has been minimal, thank goodness. Last week we approved over $2 million in settlements, for example. So the court is going forward electronically. Mediations are going forward electronically. Ombudsman services are as well. We have been able to transition people to work from home. Fortunately for us, we already had a work from home program. So where people were going home 2 days a week, now they're going home 5 days a week. But we already had, TENCOM had the mechanism to handle cases online. That's been really helpful. We've gotten a loan of laptops to send those people home. So we only have a very skeleton crew at the office. But by and large, we had a meeting with all the regional offices this morning. Everyone continues to be in good spirits and getting it done.
Yeah, yeah. Can one of you please talk to us generally about, how this virus may impact workers' comp claims? We've gotten a lot of questions from both our members, and it's a topic that's come up a lot with members of the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. If someone files a claim related to having the coronavirus, what are some of the issues that the adjudicator would sort of consider in determining whether or not that claim is compensable?
Jim, there's one thing that's really important on this issue, and that is right now, those claims are not any different than any other work comp claim. So the adjudicator needs to use TCA 50-6-102, 14, Section A and Section B. But basically, it's that same premise that you have to show that the work site was more than 50% responsible for the claim. And that doesn't mean that an employee couldn't file a PPD, but that, they're still going to have the same level of proof that they will have to provide. We don't have a presumption in Tennessee for COVID-19.
Have you had any discussion about expanding workers' comp to include healthy employees being quarantined because a coworker tested positive or other, COVID-19 related regulatory responses? There was a specific example that Ashley and I talked about. A hotel reopens and hires all their staff back. One of them tests positive and then has to send all of their employees home. Could work comp possibly cover the healthy staff that are sent home?
No, I don't see how it could. Work comp is for an accidental injury or a work-related disease. Healthy staff, you said a healthy staff home. So that's an employment practices issue.
Okay, thank you. Another one is, as you mentioned, you and Troy are both working from home today. A lot of folks are engaging in telework that haven't done so before. Is it possible to have compensable claims for injuries sustained at home while engaging in telework? And what are some things that, employers should consider when they have so many folks working from home?
Well, they certainly could have a claim. No getting around that. I could reach over the side of my chair and find a piece of paper that I was looking for and fall out and hit my head. Um, and so that would be, in my mind, I might want to file a claim. What the employer can do that would be helpful is, in the first place, give some thought to a good work from home policy. Set up some guidelines about what people can and can't do when they're on the clock and when they're off the clock. You know, the employer might want to say you have to work within regular work hours so that they don't have a 4-hour happy hour at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and decide to work from their computer and have an accident. So
Right.
the employer needs to think about it from a loss control standpoint. Some of the things, the same things you might think about in the office. Um, for the state, we require certain things when you work at home, and that is you have to have a dedicated place to work. It must be free of hazards, that type of thing. And that's what the employer needs to be thinking about. Their HR folks should be able to have lots of references to how you set up um, an alternate work program that protects the employer. There's no way to get around it. The trickiest thing is something that's always a tricky thing in work comp claims, which is somebody's on their lunch hour. So if someone goes into the kitchen and their wife has just mopped the floor and they slip and fall, you know, I don't know. That's going to be one the courts are going to have to decide. Troy, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think Abby's right. Definite set work hours would be helpful. Set lunch break would be helpful from an employer standpoint. Having a dedicated workspace, like Abbie said, those are generally good employment law practices that alternative work solutions situation would be helpful. I sort of poked around to see if there are any reported cases post-reform with telework, and couldn't find any. I asked the staff attorney at the court if they had any cases, and she looked around and said no. I guess they're being settled without the court involvement. Will we see some COVID cases before the court? Could be. The only case I am aware of is a pre-reform case that was about 15 years ago. It was a bad injury, a lady working from home over in East Nashville. And it was during her regular work day, but she let somebody in that she knew from the neighborhood, and that person attacked her and nearly killed her. And in that case, it went to the Tennessee Supreme Court. There was the employer prevailed, but the court was very specific in its finding in that case, and the language in that opinion was very open-ended about, future claims can definitely be compensable in these circumstances where someone's working from home, but in this particular situation where this lady was attacked by a person that she knew, that she let in, may have even been during the lunch break. The details are a little foggy. It's been a while since I read that case, but it definitely could be. Of course, the standard now is going to be primarily, so the employee would have to show it was primarily arising out of and in the course and scope of employment. But yeah, I'll echo what Abbie said about the best practices. She's right about that.
Gotcha. Well, thank you both. And
Jim, if I could just add
oh, sorry, go ahead, Abbie. Yeah.
If I could just add one point, I want to make sure this would answer a lot of people's questions. All these possibilities or theoretical, hypothetical issues, everybody needs to understand under the work comp law, each claim is going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. There is no cookie cutter that we could just tell you this is the way it will be in all these kinds of cases.
Right. And I would think there will be a whole lot of different types of circumstances that will come up with claims, folks working from home, folks that are, healthy but are quarantined or suspected to have the virus, and where did they get it? And there's just a whole lot of different fact patterns that can come up. So for those that don't know Troy, he's the Director of Legal Services and also serves as the legislative liaison for the Bureau. We were, before session ended, we were working on a couple of different bills. Troy, can you give an update to our folks about, your administration bills, whether or not those passed, and kind of where they are, if you're there?
Sure. The two administration bills that we have both passed in the Senate March the 9th, but are still pending in the House. They made it through the committee process. We're on the House calendar for March the 19th. That was the week, though, that the legislature sort of changed directions and only heard bills that were an emergency in nature, sunset bills, budget bills. The telehealth bill was one of those bills that passed that week, but everything else got rolled to June. The legislature has recessed until June the 1st. So both of our administration bills are actually on the House calendar for 4:30 p.m. on June the 1st. House Bill 2256 is the successor in interest 3A, 3C bill that many of our folks probably know about. The bill was amended to clarify the definition of what a successor in interest is. And then the 3A, 3C requires 3A coverage for out-of-state construction employers that are here for any period of time. That bill was amended just to clarify the definition of the successor in interest, so we can enforce those penalties that are levied against employers who are not carrying work comp coverage, or misclassification cases too, that we can collect those against successors in interest. The other bill was also amended. The amendments in the other bill, which the original version of the bill had to do with specialist panel requirements and expanding the extraordinary benefit statute in 50-6-242 by lowering the requisite impairment rating. Those two sections got amended out of the bill due to some concerns from the business community. So what's left in that bill is mainly just time considerations on qualifying for the additional increased benefits for no return to work, and the time frames on the application for and hearing for requirements on the uninsured employer benefits. So they're both on the calendar for June the 1st. Don't anticipate any further amendments or pushback on those. Like I said, we've already been through the Senate on that, and there were no nay votes on the Senate floor when those bills passed. Workers' Comp Advisory Council, that sunset was extended for 1 year. So the Advisory Council on Workers' Comp is extended to June 30, 2021. We're also watching a bill that the Secretary of State is bringing to transfer the Workers' Comp Exemption Registry from the Secretary of State to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. That is still pending as well. And we anticipate that'll move fairly quickly once the legislature comes back in session. Attorney fee sunset, that bill also was on the House calendar. It has not made it through the Senate yet, but it was on the House calendar just like our administration bills that last week of session. So it'll be on the June 1st House calendar as well. Several others we're watching: the medical cannabis, the PTSD presumption bill. We're watching those. Speculation, is all across the country about presumptions for this COVID for first responders or healthcare. I don't know if we'll see that.
Mhm. Hey, you still there? Hey,
I'm still here.
my internet connection dropped out for a second there, but I think we about had it wrapped up. Troy, did you finish everything on the legislative update, sort of?
I think I did.
Thanks, Troy. Well, maybe that's my computer's gentle reminder to begin wrapping things up. Abbie and Troy, thank you so much again for being with us today. Is there anything else that you all would like to add before we end this thing? Abbie?
Well, can't think of anything other than to thank you all for having us. If people have questions, if there are more questions that arise, just give us a call. We'll do our best to give you an answer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all both so much. And as Abbie said, you can always give her a shout. If you have questions, you can also send them to myself at jlayman, Layman, at insurers.org. Thanks again, Abbie and Troy, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.